Well, back now to our top story. The illegal immigrant accused of burning a woman alive on a New York City subway was indicted in Brooklyn today. Sebastian Zapata faces state murder and arson charges, and now Mayor Eric Adams is seeking additional federal charges. Criminal defense attorney and federal litigator Vikas Bajaj joins me now to talk more about this. Vic, it is great to see you. Looks like we might have got our clothes from the same place today. Love it. So when it comes to this case here, Mayor Adams says he'd like to see the feds come in and bring in some charges, but the Brooklyn DA says it's not necessary. Here's what he said earlier today.
I would, at a minimum, ask the judge to conduct an inquiry, bring the jurors in, find out, did they actually see this?
A lot of confidence in the people of Brooklyn and the people who come and serve on jury duty here. Second, very simply, state law is more significant in this case. You know, there's a possibility with life without parole. That's not an option in the proposed charge that was mentioned, arson, on the federal statutes.
So is he right? Is it looking at stiffer penalties with the state charges rather than any federal charges here?
It could be, and first of all, it's a pleasure to see you. Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays to you, Bill. I'm glad we dressed alike. I will tell you this, in a certain context, yes, and in a certain context, no. In one context, the state of New York has its 10th Amendment dual sovereignty right to do what it wants to do in face and in opposition sometimes to the federal government. The problem here is we have a resulting murder. When you have a murder and a death, that means that if a felony was committed in order to accomplish that death, that's a felony murder rule, which could be an increased punishment over and above what the state of New York can offer in its own state. So yes, partially, no, partially. It really depends on what facts are presented to a potential federal grand jury in order to find the requisite criminal intent, as well as premeditation and potentially the causing of the felony murder death. So yes and no.
So they've got him on camera allegedly committing this crime, even video showing him literally fanning the flames to make her burn even more. In your opinion, does this seem like a pretty open and shut case to you?
It's an open and shut case of somebody causing a death. It may not be open and shut as far as the premeditation and the requisite state of mind. One would argue, unless this is a depraved murderer who has done this before and may in effort do this again, well, one may wonder whether he suffers from significant mental compromises, which would then create a lack of evidence for a first-degree murder charge, but surely a second-degree murder charge. The fact that the individual, in a moment of consciousness and lucid thinking, did not do what he could to prevent the death or to prevent the flames from engulfing this poor young lady shows that there was intent to follow through with what he wanted, according to the prosecution, which is the death of another human being.
And then I want to talk about the Bob Menendez case for a minute here. We just found out that federal prosecutors admitted they made some pretty big blunders in this case. They apparently inadvertently exposed the jury to evidence that a judge had previously ruled that the jurors shouldn't see. We had defense attorney Mark Eiglarsson yesterday, who said he would rate this at a 9 out of 10 when it comes to screw-ups for the federal prosecutors. Here's what he said he would do if he was Menendez's attorney here.
I would, at a minimum, ask the judge to conduct an inquiry, bring the jurors in, find out, did they actually see this stuff? And if they did, how much did they rely upon it? And if so, this is a denial of due process. And, you know, whether you like Menendez or not, every one of us should care about the Constitution.
Do you anticipate Menendez's team is going to try to get a mistrial here? And where do you see this thing going now?
Absolutely. What we can see already is that the defense team has moved for a continuance of what was to be the sentencing date earlier this year in October. Now they're moving for another continuance based upon his wife's serious illness after a recent diagnosis with cancer, as well as her own trial moving forward. He says, hey, judge, and the defense says, hey, judge, hey, court, you know, it's just too much to ask for one man, is what the defense attorney said. I should be there for my wife while she's going through this trial and the tribulations as far as health. So the reason why that's important, Bill, is because we can see the defense is doing what they can to prolong and prohibit the sentencing from moving forward. The federal government, however, and this is quite important, has a vested interest in moving forward now. And it's not just because of a concern about Bob Menendez or his wife, who will face trial here shortly, as we discussed, but it's also a number of witnesses. And these witnesses have testified, they've signed agreements with the federal government. Their cases need to end as well, and that can't happen until Bob Menendez's case has reached finality.
Yep, and it seems like it was a gift-wrapped Christmas present for Menendez by those federal prosecutors. Pretty big screw up there. Vic Bajaj, great to see you. Hope you had a great Christmas yourself. We'll talk soon.
Thank you.